The UN Security Council will meet next week to follow up on the UN Top Court's ruling on Gaza. The International Court of Justice on Friday ordered Israel to do everything in its power to prevent genocide in the territory. The preliminary ruling in a case brought by South Africa told Israel to do more to protect civilians, but stopped short of calling for a ceasefire in Israel's military campaign against Hamas. The court also ordered the release of Israeli hostages kidnapped by Hamas during the October 7th terror attacks.
Outside the International Court of Justice, Palestinian supporters watch a live stream of proceedings.
In light of the foregoing,
some here had been hoping for more from the judges, but many are seeing this ruling as a symbolic victory, with the Palestinian delegation at the ICJ saying it could have far-reaching consequences.
It is an important step towards justice to the Palestinian people. We're not here for vengeance, we're here for justice. And we seek justice for our people. We seek justice for the children who were killed in Gaza and all of Palestine.
On the Israeli side, these campaigners can't believe the genocide case brought before the court by South Africa is even proceeding.
The very solid evidence that was presented by the Israeli side 2 weeks ago, where it was very clearly stated that Israel cannot commit a genocide because what is being done there doesn't have the intention to commit a genocide. This is not genocide.
Israel had been pushing for the ICJ to drop the case completely. And after the ruling, its prime minister gave this reaction.
The charge of genocide leveled against Israel is not only false, it's outrageous, and decent people everywhere should reject it.
While the ICJ stopped short of calling for a ceasefire, South Africa's president is urging for more to be done to stop the fighting in Gaza.
We firmly believe that following this judgment, there should now be a more concerted effort towards a ceasefire, and negotiations should commence on a permanent two-state solution for enabling Israel and Palestine to live side by side as independent states.
Now, Israel has been asked to report back within a month on how it's upholding the orders from the top UN court, although the court does not have the power to enforce the ruling.
Let's get more on this from DW special correspondent Aya Ibrahim, who joins us from Jerusalem. Hello, Aya. Tell us more about how people in Israel are reacting to this ruling.
I think there's a sense of relief that the court did stop short of ordering a complete cessation of hostilities or a ceasefire. I think it's important to remember that for a large, overwhelming part of Israeli society, they're still sort of stuck on October 7th. That trauma of that day is not over yet. There are still hostages held in Gaza. Just yesterday, Hamas released another video of hostages apparently showing them still alive, and that's the kind of re-traumatization that people here go through. And so there's still a sense that the war in Gaza is a war of self-defense for people here. And there was a general sense of confusion and shock at this whole case because people here feel they're on a self-defensive war, while at the same time on the global stage, we have seen over the past 3 months a growing isolation of the Israeli position and the position of Israel's allies like the US and Germany vis-a-vis this war. So there is a sense of relief that a ceasefire has not been ordered. At the same time, at least for Palestinian officials and Palestinians, there's still a win in this ruling. The fact that the court has said that there's the genocide is plausible. Of course, the ruling whether or not there is a genocide happening will take years, but the fact that it has said that it is plausible, and now Israel will have to face that accusation in court, is seen as a win for Palestinians and their allies. There are also There are also analysts who say while the court has not ordered a complete ceasefire, some of the provisional measures that have been ordered, including the prevention of genocide, the allowing of more humanitarian aid, would require de facto some sort of toning down of the fighting or something close to a ceasefire. So certainly, as you mentioned at the top, a polarizing decision, but for people here in Israel, a sense of relief as they continue to live the trauma of October 7th.
Right. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says he trusts Israel will comply with the ICJ's order. Now, considering that Netanyahu has so far resisted international pressure, is this ruling likely to change how Israel conducts this war?
Well, what Israel says and what we've heard government spokespeople say ever since this ruling was issued on Friday is that Israel is already doing its best. That's what they say, to prevent civilian casualties, that Israel employs, according to these government spokespeople, measures to make sure that civilians are kept out of harm's way. And we've heard one government spokesperson say that there's actually excess capacity for the processing of aid into Gaza. Now, that is a completely different picture from what we hear civilians on the ground reporting, what we hear from international organizations as well. So there's definitely an attempt by the Israeli side to frame this as, well, we've already been doing this, but that is something that certainly large, credible human rights organizations disagree with. I mean, we're looking at a death toll that has surpassed 20,000, according to the health ministry in the Hamas-run Strip, and casualties that far exceed that number in a span of more than 3 months.
Right. DW Special Correspondent Aya Ibrahim from Jerusalem. Thank you. Let's get the perspective from Gaza with journalist Hazem Balousha, who spent the first months of the war reporting from inside the embattled enclave. He joins us now from the Jordanian capital, Amman. Hello, Hazem. The court has ordered Israel to prevent acts of genocide in Gaza, but not to end its military operation there. Can this ruling really be considered a victory for the people in Gaza?
Two levels. We are talking about the official level, human rights organizations, where they consider it as a win, accepting the case of genociding against Palestinian people. Most of the Palestinian officials mentioned this, and they said this is a victory and a win. It's a great and a symbolic step that the ICJ accepting such case against Israel for the first time. But on the ground level with the people, they are disappointed. They think this is not going to change the reality of their life, the current suffer and displacement, lack of all basic needs. I talked to a few people in Gaza, and they said that the death and the killing will continue. The operation is continue. So this ruling is not going to change our reality.
Also, on the ruling, the court called on Palestinian militant groups such as Hamas to release the remaining hostages. How likely is that to happen?
It's not going to happen without a deal. Hamas is clear about this. Hamas, despite they welcomed the ruling, and they said that they need international community to press Israel to implement a ceasefire in Gaza. They ask for a swap deal. Hamas, one of the aims that they announced earlier when they did the attack of October 7, that to release the Palestinian prisoners held in the Israeli prisons. So nobody is talking about Hamas freeing the Israeli hostages without exchanging them with the Palestinian prisoners in the Israeli prison.
You started talking about it earlier in your first response. There's no ceasefire on the table for now. The WHO, World Health Organization, is now warning that the last functioning hospital in Gaza is on the brink of collapse. What does that mean for the humanitarian situation on the ground there?
Gaza now is suffering from different levels of problems and horrific situation, and food level, on the medical level, sheltering, the most essential and one of the basics that the hospitals, most of them, they are run out of service. The main two hospitals in Gaza Strip, the one in Gaza City, which is Shifa Hospital, and was run out of service a long time ago. Now partially working. The other one in Khan Yunis, Nasser Hospital, which is surrounded by the tanks, and a lot of footage and reports coming from there. They are suffering lack of or shortage of medics existing there. Their capacity is very limited. So on all levels, like the medical and the health system is about to collapse. Yes.
Journalist Hazem Balousha, thank you.
Thank you.
Our correspondent Dianne Hawker is in Johannesburg, South Africa. Hello, Dianne. South Africa took the case to the court in the first place. How is the ruling being perceived in the country?
Well, Eddie, in South Africa, there is a lot of positivity around this decision. Many South Africans have been posting on social media and in community groups, posting South African flags and images of our former president, Nelson Mandela. You'll know that Nelson Mandela was someone who really was in support of the Palestinian cause, and he said that South Africa would not be free unless the people of Palestine were free. And people have a feeling that this decision and the South African government's move is taking that position forward and in a way upholding what Nelson Mandela had fought for. Of course, there's also an understanding here that the decision by the ICJ does place South Africa to somewhat in conflict with some other international players, particularly with the Israeli government, who are not happy with the outcome. Just a few hours after the decision was announced, the Israeli carrier El Al announced that it would be halting flights to South Africa in March. And this is the airline said this was as a result of fewer Israelis wanting to travel to South Africa. Of course, here locally, this decision has also given more momentum to protests that have been going on in support of the Palestinian people. We've seen pickets and also some protests against particular companies which are believed to be supporting the Israeli cause.
The genocide trial will continue and could take months or years. What does South Africa expect now from the ICJ?
Well, in the short term, South Africa's expectations don't really look towards the ICJ, but they look more towards the international community. As the report that played earlier on mentioned, there will be talks held at the UN Security Council. And of course, South Africa is hoping that there will be action taken there. They're also hoping that other countries, now that the ICJ has made this ruling, will start to speak out, and that there will be a change in Israel's or the behavior of Israeli leaders. For example, one of the things mentioned in the decision relates to the government stopping any kind of incitement, and the decision also mentioned language that was used by Israeli leaders. So the South African government is really expecting and hoping that there will be a change in that language and really a concerted effort to preserve lives.
Okay. DW correspondent Dianne Hawker in Johannesburg. Thank you.